Kaycee's back in the house today. We appreciate your regular contributor here. And we continue to be walking through Devotions on Diabetes. This is your book. It's a 30-day journey through, and I'm just quoting you, it's a 30-day journey to anchor your soul. Love it. So this is the picture of the book. And if you don't have it, we recommend you get it. And if you happen to have it today, open it up. We're going to be looking at day 3, which is titled Nothing Makes Sense. Boy.
I feel like that most days, Melissa.
Yes. And that's what just drives us crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and
there's always something that doesn't make sense.
Unbelievable. And we're going to talk about the, specifically, you used a specific story in here, which was, again, relatable. So we'll kind of talk and walk through that. But it triggers some things in my mind, and probably yours too, as you're talking through it. But some of the things that I asked myself, I'm new on an insulin pump since last October. So settings, insulin to carb ratio. So when we start to talk about blood sugar and those numbers that we see, whether it's on our CGM or our glucometer, that just doesn't add up. So these are some things that we can kind of look closer at today. And just to find some grace with this, and putting it in perspective and just recognizing where we are with this disease and the day-to-day with it. So what it feels like when when familiar routines just simply stop working. Or in this case, just even if it is a familiar routine, and I think this is, you're going to have to remind me what I read, but you use an example, and you could probably better explain this myself because you lived it. But basically this is what happened yesterday and it worked yesterday. Well, this is a new day, so why didn't I get the same results doing the same thing?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
That's so frustrating, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yes. In the book, I use the example of going to church on a Sunday morning, and I would go low right as church was starting. And it happened several weeks in a row, and my family and I joked that going to church makes your blood sugar drop, as if being at church was making that happen, and it wasn't.
Right.
But
Right.
I think it's an interesting thought of I'm doing the exact same thing, but there are so many variables that affect our blood sugar that you may think you're doing the same things, but there are other variables you're not thinking about. Something's going on.
That's right.
And it may just be that, we're extra sensitive to the insulin today, and sometimes that's just it.
Yeah.
But yes, it's frustrating to be in that situation where you're like, I do this every Sunday, and all of a sudden, several weeks in a row, we're dropping, and I'm chewing on glucose gummies while everyone else is worshiping. Like, this is not good.
Yeah. And you've already brought up and this is something we'll dive into as we start to talk more about, but hormones. And again, we see the impact of hormones. We talk a lot about that here on the show, especially as we're aging. But, and this is something I didn't know when I was younger, my 20s and 30s with type 1. Because again, the doctors I don't know that they knew the connection between estrogen and progesterone and all those hormones that are cycling through our body every month and how closely related it is to insulin's response in our body. So you brought it up first too about the hormones. It is so true. And I think that is the number one. I know, especially I think with newly diagnosed, is, those people that are just newly diagnosed and they're just trying to understand this blood sugar thing. And I think it depends on the doctor. I think some may explain the variables more or less. I think that's really important. It's not just about the food or the carb count or, sometimes we're guessing at the carb. Well, gosh, that's me. I know. I just kind of throw it up and say, okay, this is what I think. And that's all we can do. And adjust the rest. But I think that is where it can get really sideways when you don't really understand really all the influences. And I love that word influence. I heard I think her name is Riva, and I'm sorry, this triggered in my brain because I just heard her on another show a couple months back, and I love the way she was really putting it in perspective. We use the word control. I'm guilty of that as well. It used to be, I can't control my blood sugar today. It's out of control. I'm a bad diabetic. We can kind of term ourselves because we can't seem to make the right decisions around what we're about to, do or dose for. She used the word influence. So all we can do is make decisions, make choices to influence how we hope the outcome will be. And
true.
just like life and just having faith in our life, God's in control. He's the leader of really how it's going to look and kind of play out. All we can do is hang on and trust and surrender and try to influence that the best we can. So I loved how she just kind of termed that.
Yeah, you're so right when you bring it up, the idea that, okay, God's our creator. He created our body. Obviously, a pancreas is part of that, right? And so I just feel like it is so intricate a design that our human minds don't fully grasp everything that's going on enough, and our human mind is what's trying to control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's almost like we don't have all the information all the time. And all we can do is our best. You know what I'm saying? That's hard to explain.
That's true. That's true. Sometimes, and I think that's one of the best things that I think I've learned from blood sugar results is we can only wait and see how it kind of plays out later in the day or the week or whatever that kind of variable of time that you're looking at where it seems to be sticky or not making sense. That's the only way, because we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle when we're in it. And then that's when the emotions, and then we can get caught up in that so quick. It can be a slippery slope, and it can lead to some, it can lead to not being confident about your decisions. I know that's a big problem, again, for newly diagnosed or people that even have had diabetes for a while. Yeah, for sure. So how do you think we can control, in your beliefs, maybe just talking through, maybe let's take a step back and talk about this day at church and what you were going through and, just how you were processing it. And then we can kind of unpack how it, maybe some of the listeners can use this as well.
Yeah. So basically what was happening for several weeks in a row, I would get to church, and here's what I really think it was, if I can tell the end of the story first.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really think it was, Sunday is just a totally different morning than every other morning. Every other morning is much more laid back at like 8 a.m. I sit to work. I'm a graphic designer and writer, right? And so I'm at a computer to work. I exercise before I ever eat breakfast and dose. So that's, off the table. And I'm trying, I'm eating breakfast. I'm hustle and bustle to get kids ready, everybody in the van, get them to church, up the stairs, check in for kids, down the stairs, hauling everything. And I get to worship and I'm like 65 or something, Mm-hmm. And my CGM's beeping at me, and week 4 or 5 of this, and I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm shocked. I'm 65.
Mm-hmm.
This is. But I probably, in hindsight, I've had diabetes for 33 years now. I should have seen this pattern before I did. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I can be hard on myself in that way, and we shouldn't be hard on ourselves in that way. Because in all reality, it wasn't happening like that weeks prior. Mm-hmm. It just started happening. And so, yes, I was eating glucose gummies and everyone else was worshiping. And then once the worship was over, I was fine. Sure. And everyone else sat down with me. Mm-hmm. That's just how it went.
Yeah, get it.
And like I said, I think it's because it's such a different morning than every other morning. But that's the story. That's the church causing a low story.
Yeah, absolutely. And, sometimes we got to get out of our own head and just realize that and just say, okay, so what can I do different next Sunday?
Right. And that's in the story too. What did I do differently next Sunday? I backed off my dose just a little bit. I'm thinking I'm going to land at perfect 100, and I get into church and my CGM's not beeping at me, and I was 204? 204. Perfect.
Yeah, I know. Just when we think we got it figured out, no, you don't.
Right, I know. It makes me wonder, though, what would have happened had I not backed off my dose? What would I have been, 150? I don't know,
Yeah.
So
It's such a good, It's such a good lesson. I'm glad we're talking. This is so real and relatable to everybody too, because like you say, even though it was a Sunday, and my Sundays are very routine like yours as well with church. But it's a different morning than, Monday through Saturday. It just is. Our routine, I tend to go low in church as well, which is interesting.
Hmm.
Generally, I do as well. I have to watch myself. I tend to do a little bit more physically before church on Sundays. It depends on which mass we're going to or the service we're going to. So we usually go to the 10:30, which is a little later. So my husband and I, we like to get up and kind of utilize the morning and get up and move more. So obviously that's
Yeah.
anytime we move more, we're going to
Yes.
just kind of increase that sensitivity.
Yes.
But yeah, we still kind of hang on to, well, this is what I dose, this is what I eat. Oh, it'll catch up with me eventually. By the time we sit down or, drive to the church and sit down and, get in there, it'll start to kind of bump back up again. But yeah, I've been finding myself too just recently. It's interesting because I'm kind of playing around with my settings a little bit more on my pump.
Yeah.
And it's not dangerous lows. I'm assuming yours was not a dangerous low. It was
No.
just like 55, 60,
Yeah.
kind of nudging me. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for the G7 that you can just shut that off. Or you can silence it and sit in it and know it. Your husband next to you, he obviously,
Right.
he's there. He's going to give you
Right.
some gummies if he can help you. But in general,
Yeah.
at least we can just kind of recover from it in a quiet way, which is obviously good. But yeah, it's really just when we think we got to figure it out. No, it's yeah. And I have this one client. I've been working with her for a while now, and I think maybe we've talked about this. Really, this topic, really, just our personalities, how our personalities and our perfectionism can really influence what we expect or how much we demand from knowing about how our blood sugar is going to respond after eating a meal or after a workout, and letting go of the fact that there's really no way to expect anything. We just got to understand it's situational. This is what's happening this hour.
Yeah.
All we can do is influence it this way or that way,
Yeah.
And I know that's something she continues to work on, is just letting go of having to know exactly why.
Yeah.
Why? Tell me why I ran higher. Just tell me why. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, let's go through the checklist one more time because we know all the reasons. And I can't give you the exact formula. I just know you did. And you know you did. So it's like, okay, just maybe studying that time, right? Yeah.
The best thing we can do is look for patterns,
Yeah.
right? I try really hard not to tweak my pump settings too quickly, right? Because then if it really truly isn't a pattern, if it was just a one-off situation, you may be putting other things into a tailspin,
That's true.
So
That's
I
true.
try not to do that, but yeah, if we can just look for patterns and remember, like, hey, it's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with it.